Divorce might seem like the obvious answer when betrayal occurs, but there are ways to save a marriage or relationship if the betrayer and the betrayed partner are willing to step into healing. This is something I think, if I remember right, you're doing a lot more couples work these days since your IRCM certification. Is that right? How are you enjoying it?
That is correct, and I'm actually loving it. The IRCM modality has really offered me some very specific tools that couples are really embracing immediately. So it's showing a shift from the first session to the next session of just a 180. It's
within one session. That's amazing. Well, I believe it. I mean, it's the power of putting empathy into place and really emphasizing the relationship. So you've got your own story around this and you've got your own professional experience around this. But I wanted to start out by talking to you really about how you got to this place and around your own discovery. Specifically, how did you feel supported when you discovered the infidelity in your own story?
The short answer is I didn't. I had been seeing a personal therapist, and then my ex-husband had also been seeing his own therapist. And when the truth kind of started spilling out, I had called my therapist, left her a message, and said, "Oh, these awful things have happened." And she never called me back. I thought, well, for sure, I should sit in shame. These are awful. There's nobody that's going to help me. So I didn't really feel supported at all.
This may sound like a kind of a harsh question or whatever, but what was it like to walk that path alone? What was that like for you?
It was really dark. One of the things that I talk about when I work with couples is the place where I sat was survival. Everything about me was just, how do I function on a daily basis? How do I get out of bed? How do I actually live my life? Versus my husband at the time had already learned how to compartmentalize. So his functioning was very different than mine. So I work with partners and try to explain it to the husband that the way I felt, I was in survival mode. I didn't have a choice but to try to figure out how to live each moment. And so to put it in the couples that I work with, when I express it in that blunt contrast, many times the husbands are like, "Oh, I had no idea that it was that basic. It's just cut and dry. How do I wake up in the morning?" So I'm a pretty fiery gal. And I did figure out how to wake up in the morning, how to get up. And I did start investigating because I thought I surely can't be the only one. Surely I can't be the only person that's traveling down this path because it's everywhere. I mean, pornography, sex addiction, everything is out there in the world. And I remember one night I was sitting in bed and I was like, there's got to be somebody else out there. And so I just typed in your sexually addicted spouse. And wouldn't you know, Barb Stebbins abscess popped right up. And that was sort of my starting point.
And the reason why, when we're talking about divorce prevention 101, I think it's helpful to start with your story is because, and we never know what would have happened, but we definitely know getting that support early on is going to really increase the chances of a couple being able to make it. When you don't have that support and you're just flailing around, doing the best you can, there's a lot more damage that happens, especially in those early days. Yeah. And so then what I'm hearing you say is you got some education. I mean, you sort of a divine appointment. What better Google search could you put in there and get Barb Steffens' book, find AppSats. But there's a lot of stuff we have to learn in this journey that betrayed partners have to learn in this journey. If they are coming from a faith community, what do they do with that? And some of the stuff they've been taught around forgiveness, right? Or what's a boundary and how do you set a boundary? Can you talk about some of the stuff you needed education around for this journey?
Well, the first thing was I needed a voice. I needed a space to kind of open my mouth. And I didn't even know how to do that because a lot of times these women are coming from relationships where they've been oppressed just by nature of the spouse trying to hide their own addiction. And so you combat that. And then you hear all these things about boundaries. And I was like, I don't have a clue. What is that? What does that mean? Then to try to figure out, okay, if I have a boundary of just throwing up there of him speaking kindly to me, well, then comes the next one. What happens if he doesn't? So there's not only the issue of trying to figure out what is a boundary, but then there's got to be a result or a consequence or the aftermath.
So boundaries are for sure. What I'm trying to think, early on, if a couple's trying to do their divorce prevention 101, what are some other things that initially you would say these are some of the first things you need to understand? So definitely understanding boundaries, how to have a voice, find your voice and have the voice. What else might you list?
One of the other things that when I talk to the coupleship is that the husband has the power, truly has the power to redirect this entire ship. And one of those very specific things, we talk about it all the time, is empathy. And if the husband doesn't, I'm like, you got to have empathy. And he looks at me like, what does that mean? What is that? How do I do that? And one of the super easy tools that if I had this, I think it would have made a huge difference is with the IRCM training and with Help Her Heal and some of the Carol Sheet stuff and the things that you teach as well is to affirm, validate, and then reassure, to affirm that the emotions are present with the wife, and then to validate it's okay, you should feel this way. And then to reassure the partner that here's what I'm doing. I'm doing my 12 steps. I'm going to this counselor. I'm doing all of these things. And just that, it's not even like a minute, can shift her from crisis to, okay, I can do this.
Yeah, yeah. So I just want to say it back. If the one who did the betraying, which often we'll say he and husband, but we know it can go either way. Yeah. If the one who did the betraying really tries to latch onto the power of empathy, it's a game changer, is what you're saying. Yeah, I agree. And I heard you just go through Carol the coach's AVR, right? And that's such a powerful tool. I want to make sure that the folks who are listening heard that. Can you go through it one more time? AVR, a great way to express empathy for any of you out there needing some help with this. Go ahead, Coach Kim. Lay it on us.
The first is to affirm.
Yeah.
That's what the A stands for. The V stands for validate. The R stands for reassure. So to affirm, that would be acknowledging that the partner is upset. So you got wife screaming at you. She's really upset. You're like, oh, from the husband's standpoint, partner standpoint, betrayer standpoint, wow, you look really angry right now. That brings her into, oh, he's paying attention to me.
Right.
That's the affirm. Validate. You have every right to feel this way. You have every reason to feel this way. I have been looking at pornography for 20 years. Whatever that is that's caused her this anger, to validate, absolutely, you have every right to feel this way. And then to reassure her. Remember that we added all of these boundaries on my computer. You've got my phone. You can look at it anytime. Here it is. That reassures her that he's stepping into that healing space. And she doesn't have to be in a fear space or an unsafe location anymore. She can sit and go, okay, he's right here next to me. We're working this out. Yeah.
And folks, listen, if you're hearing that for the very first time, you might be thinking to yourself, oh, come on, it can't be that simple. But I'm telling you, it is so powerful. But I will add one little dimension to it. If you're going to try it, think about how Kim was saying that, right? Sure, you can look at my phone. Of course, if you need access, not here, you can look at my phone, right? Right. Yeah. I always tell guys, if you're learning empathy, you have to own the fact that yes, your words are communicating something, but your tone of voice, facial expression, whether your eyes are soft or hard, your body posture, the distance between you and the person you're speaking to, that all is sending a message as well. And you're 100% responsible for that message also. So that can help really make it work. But yes, super, super powerful tool. So empathy early on as a game changer. And that really is what the IRCM model is based. In fact, the word empathy is in the name. Early recovery couples empathy model. Yeah. Anything else you can think of, like education wise, that early on a couple would need to know if they're hoping for divorce prevention?
Podcasts, listening to podcasts, discussing them with each other. I'll recommend to couples listen to them either separately or together, and then talk about what did you learn from it? What are you taking from this podcast? Don't just listen to them independently, but podcasts are really easy, especially at the very beginning. Many partners who are experiencing trauma can't read because their brains are so shot, and to give them all of these books and these reading things, they can't read either. So to be able to offer them something that they can listen to is a big deal. Any kind of books that are audible for the wife to be able to listen to, you can get one copy and let him read it if he can read. To know that he's coming beside her educationally is a big deal, I think.
Yeah, like joining her in the journey. He cares about it too. Yeah, and that also, it really does go a long way. And you know, as I've worked with many couples at this point, and often they're wired very differently. I often say to couples, "Did you know your brains are different?" And one way that they're different is often the one who's been betrayed is seeking more information because it's a safety issue. And the one who did the betraying can be resistant because that very same stuff incites shame, right? Yeah. In the one who did the betraying. Do you have any advice for those, you know, okay, they'd like to listen to this podcast with their wife or with their husband, but man, it just brings up so many reminders of what they've done and their shame. What would you say to that person?
3 things come to my mind.
Okay.
The first, and I don't know if you can download it at the end of this, but the first is you have a little video that's like 5 or 6 minutes long. It's called Betrayal Trauma Brain.
Yeah.
All of my clients have to watch that. The
second we'll put the link in the show notes for anyone listening. Go ahead, Kim.
The second is the coaster video that you also have, encouraging him to be present while she heals. And the third is the recognition that the wife would not be here if she didn't hope and pray with every parcel of her being that this marriage be saved. That's where everything's going, in spite of her trauma. And that for the husbands just to remember, she's here because she loves me and she wants this to work with everything that she has. And that's where I've even heard you say it. You either choose the marriage and the wife or you choose your shame. Yeah,
for sure. Thank you. Those are good. And we will make sure all those links are posted in the show notes to all that stuff. And you know, as I'm hearing you talk there, Kim, that last point where you said remembering that she's still here, remembering that person you betrayed is still in the relationship, fighting for the relationship. And one of the ways I say that is I call that the connection reframe, the connection reframe, because no matter what the trigger is, we go down beneath the surface of the behavior and the words in that moment and go all the way down to the very bottom tip of that iceberg. That trigger is ultimately about the fear of loss of the relationship or the pain of disconnection. And so if I move further away when my wife is triggered, I'm actually like, you know, throwing gasoline on the fire.
Right, exactly. Yeah.
Right. And so somehow remembering this is ultimately about connection, and because she wants connection, super, super helpful and grounding. That's all some really good advice, empathy and podcasts, and, you know, AVR is a great tool. How about some bad advice? Did you ever get some bad advice along the way? Did you ever get any bad advice along the way? And what would you caution folks against?
It's not your fault. There's nothing that you did. More sex is not going to make it go away. Forgiveness just doesn't work. Forgive and then trust. I just don't even know where to start with that one, Jake. It's, kind of like, let me boil it down to, because a lot of women, once they get to this point, they've been told all of this noise, and we're teaching them to start trusting their intuition, their gut, that pit of their core being. And I think what I would boil it down to is that if there's something within your very core that says, it does not feel right, I don't know if I can do that, but that's probably bad advice.
Yeah, that's really good. And I want to go back to the forgiveness thing that you were mentioning, because I go back there because it really is so prevalent, in comments I get from, in faith-based communities and in, comments that I get from listeners to this show, that just forgive. And we can just kind of riff on this a little bit, Kim, for a minute. Number one, I would say you can't forgive if you don't know what you're forgiving.
True.
Right. And does that mean you have to know every single little gritty detail? No, but generally, right? Like, what happened here? And then secondly, and you mentioned this as well, that I think there's a huge difference between forgiving someone and trusting them again.
Absolutely. Yep. Like, you can forgive your husband for coming home and having drank a beer if he's a recovering alcoholic. That's one thing. But to trust that he's going to exit the home and not drink again, that's a very different process.
Very different.
So yeah.
Yeah. When the folks I'm working with, like if say a guy who betrayed, he's having a hard time with this. She hasn't forgiven me. I'll say, well, let's imagine that you have a business partner,
Mm-hmm.
y'all own a company 50-50, and, things just aren't quite adding up. And then you find out that for the last 3 years, he's embezzled, $1.5 million, and he's stolen that from you. You could forgive him. Does that mean you have to go right back into business with him and act like it never happened? It's two different things. Forgiveness and reconciliation are different.
Absolutely.
I would say.
Yep.
Yeah. I'm trying to think any other really bad advice. One you mentioned, more sex. More sex will fix it, right?
Yeah.
Just,
It's
not so much.
everywhere. It's just not, it just doesn't work.
Yeah.
And in fact, our first advice is 90 days of abstinence. So, to try to kind of get everything
sure
foggy, to help everything out a little bit.
That's right.